So as I was saying on the previous portion of the presentation, California, Texas, New York, and Illinois have the largest number of teacher shortages, but it's still a national problem because according to the U.S. Department of Education, 75% of states report it as being a problem. And because of that, it's a national issue that we can take and look at it in small pockets, take and look at it on a state issue. And so for me, I want to specifically focus on Virginia. So during the 2017-18 school year, the state of Virginia reported teacher shortages in different academic areas and disciplines that I'll talk about in a moment. And so the teacher shortage is going to be an important issue. One, because it is a national issue. It's impacting various states, but also because it impacts our most vulnerable population. So oftentimes teacher shortages happen in urban districts that serve a lot of minority students and a lot of students who are on the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder. It also impacts rural areas where populations may not be as diverse or as urban areas, but a lot of students in rural areas are also on the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder. So according to the United States Department of Education, special education, elementary education, career and technical education, mathematics education, and foreign languages are amongst the most critical areas in Virginia. And so the diagram on the right shows the percentage of states with shortages in specific areas, and these are the areas that nationwide are an issue. And so you can see across the nation, just like in Virginia, special education is an issue. Across the nation, foreign languages is an issue. Math is an issue, just like in Virginia. What I want to point out too is that when you look at career and technical education, oftentimes we're talking about STEM subjects in Virginia. So if you look at math and science, how that's a national thing, our career and technical education can be tied into that because some of it has a STEM focus.
Teacher crisis. That's what some local professors say is coming as soon as 2020.
Governor Terry McAuliffe's highlighted the importance of education, preparing students for jobs in Virginia and keeping those students here when they graduate.
But recruiting and retaining teachers is becoming a big problem here in the Commonwealth and across the country.
I think what has become increasingly difficult is identifying teacher candidates. For the first time, it's been more difficult to staff our elementary positions. In the past, we would probably have 3 to 4 applicants for every vacancy, and I really noticed a change in that this year.
Better schools attract businesses and bring more money into our communities. In a Special Education Matters report, WSLS 10's Jenna Zipton takes a deeper look into the problem and the creative solutions to fix it.
Positive one, so I'm going to the right. I'm not one of those people that always grew up and knew I wanted to teach.
But teaching is what Katie Church is doing in this Chatham High School math class, and she hasn't even finished her education degree.
I definitely didn't know what to expect coming in, having zero education background, but I mean, I enjoy it.
Because they need a teacher, she's been hired on full-time while still wrapping up her education degree at Liberty University.
We want to continue to streamline ways to make teaching easier.
Dr. Michelle Goodwin oversees the teacher licensing program at Liberty.
We get calls, we get emails from schools saying we need a teacher in this specific area, we need help in this specific area.
The Learning Policy Institute, a group that does a lot of education research, says 3 million teachers serve more than 50 million students across the country. Without enough teachers,
they increase class sizes, they put teachers in areas that they're not licensed to do.
Virginia has seen the same top 5 critical shortages for the past 5 years. Special education, elementary, middle education, career and technical, and math grades 6 to 12. The Learning Policy Institute says there are several factors driving these shortages. Districts trying to get class sizes down, increasing student enrollment, and teachers leaving before retirement age for reasons like burnout, pay, or satisfaction levels. But teachers we talk to say the pressures of SOLs are also a big factor.
Any kind of teaching is one of the most intense kinds of professional challenges that a person can face.
Dr. Cindy Unwin is a reading specialist at Roanoke Catholic.
Drive.
Good job. Spending 31 years teaching across the country, most in public schools, she estimates about a third of her time was spent testing.
It just seemed like I wasn't a teacher anymore. I was a tester.
Teachers like her are leaving school systems, switching careers, or starting families.
That's why they're quitting. It's like, why should I do this when I don't get paid well enough, first of all, and when I have gone through 4 years of college and I am a professional and I have been trained to do what it is I'm supposed to be doing, and yet I'm not trusted enough to make my own decisions.
But the problem runs deeper than teachers leaving.
We've seen a steady decline.
What's missing?
Teaching programs like the well-known Radford University College of Education seeing a drop in students wanting to be teachers. Dr. Kenna Cawley is the dean. She says there are a lot of hoops for people to go through just to get into teaching, with pressure to pass tests and the expense of getting a degree.
I think that we need to provide more incentives for people to go into teacher education, for giving some loans if they pay back that time, more scholarships for teachers.
Local schools have been trying to increase teacher pay to remain competitive. Roanoke City, along with other schools across Virginia, started Teachers for Tomorrow programs, getting high school juniors and seniors the beginning lessons in teaching before they go to college. What's the ultimate answer? Everyone agrees it's going to take collaboration and maybe some creativity to get students into teaching and retain teachers in the classroom.
There are things that people are doing to hopefully turn the wave around to get more people going into teacher education, but some of them are Band-Aids and some of them we don't know are sustainable.
In the United States, sometimes we have to be in a crisis before we make a change, and I think that may end up being what happens. So it should end up being a negative too.
Meanwhile, new teachers like Katie Church are holding on to the little moments that make a big difference.
Helping students, helping people have a breakthrough, anything like that. At the end of the day, that's what it's about.
While there is no one solution, everyone agrees teacher shortages need to be addressed now. Superintendents meet with colleges on a regular basis, keeping the lines of communication open and brainstorming ideas to make sure students have enough attention in the classroom for years to come. Jenna Zipton, WSLS 10.
So there are a few important components of the teacher shortage in Virginia and things that are being done to help with the teacher shortage. But I think an important question that has to be raised is, are the things that are being done on a federal, a state, and a local level, are the things that are being done to address teacher shortages, are they more so Band-Aids or are they sustainable solutions? So what's being done in Virginia to combat the teacher shortage? On December 11th, 2017, then Governor Terry McAuliffe signed what's known as Executive Directive 14. So this is a copy of the press release and the actual portions of the actual directive. And the directive itself did a few things. First, it provided funding to automate the teacher licensure process. And so as many of us know, the teacher licensure process, from turning in transcripts, mailing things to the Department of Education, paying for transcripts, paying for your transcripts to be evaluated, that can be costly both to people entering the profession, but every 5 years when we have to renew this process, or we have to go through this process of renewal, it can be time consuming and costly. I did this, I had to renew my license this year, and the process from beginning to end took more than 2 months. And so, and that's because it's all paper. And so what this directive is trying to do is to make that process automated so that it's a bit more easy for us. The next thing that the directive is going to do, or is trying to do, is to provide funding for recruitment and retention of principals in Virginia and districts that are challenging. So some of the urban districts where it's very difficult to keep principals, to have principals, they're trying to do a bit of recruitment in that area. The directive also increases the TAG program so that students that are enrolled in Virginia colleges and universities have a bit more incentive to enter the teaching profession. It also helps to lower the cost of testing and test preparation for provisionally licensed minority groups. So statistically, minority groups have performed at a or passed licensure testing at a disproportionate rate to their peers. So what this directive is going to do is set up programs, test prep programs, to help them prepare for the test and to help them pass the test. And finally, what the directive is trying to do is to revise budget language to improve teacher scholarship loans. So teachers who teach in one of the top 5 critical shortage areas, if they teach for 2 years in divisions that have at least 50% free and reduced lunch, they'll be eligible for up to $20,000 in monies from the government. Now, I'm not sure if that will be, and it says if there's scholarship loans, so I'm not exactly sure what that will look like, but it's an incentive that the state is trying to use. So the directive itself focuses on different areas. So when I go back to what we saw when we looked at Ingersoll in the beginning, about the issue of the teacher shortage being an issue of shortage and turnover, I think that this directive does try to address turnover in some small ways, especially if you look at Action 5, when I talked about teachers receiving money up to $20,000 if they work in areas of need. But as we can tell, the main purpose of this is focusing on recruitment. So I guess the question becomes, is this an attempt to reform or mitigate the problem? And I think that there's no question about it that this is Virginia's way of attempting to mitigate the teacher shortage. So what does this mean for Virginia? So the within the executive directive, colleges and universities beginning on March 1st can now offer 4-year teacher licensure programs instead of 5. So for those who want to become teachers, this is a great thing because in the long run, it means that it'll cost them less, and it means that they'll get into the classroom sooner. The University of Radford, a school in Virginia, has been offering a 4-year program, and I'm not quite sure how they were able to do this and no one else was. So it's actually something that I'm looking into. So in looking at what the University of Radford does, basically, students take core classes the first 2 years that are non-education based. They have to have a 2.75. They apply to the College of Education. If they're accepted during their junior year, they have to pass all testing requirements, and they take about 27 credit hours of teacher intensive classes depending on which area of education they're going into. And then their final year, they do a year of student teaching. This is also a model that many other states that have 4-year programs use. So I imagine that many schools in Virginia that began to offer 4-year degrees will use a similar model. The University of Virginia is going to be one of the first schools to offer the program, so it'll be interesting to see what it looks like.